It all starts with our protagonist, Nishikata, who is in his classroom preparing a prank for his classmate, Takagi. He sets up a springboard, intending to scare her. But, as usual, Takagi is one step ahead, turning the prank on him instead. To his bad luck, Nishikata ends up being the one startled, letting out a loud scream that the entire class hears. This commotion prompts their teacher, Mr. Tanabe, to call them over. Embarrassed and frustrated, Nishikata begins plotting a new prank to get back at Takagi for outsmarting him once again. Fortunately for him, he doesn't have to come up with a new idea on his own. Takagi unexpectedly asks to borrow his eraser. Seeing an opportunity, Nishikata agrees and tries to insult her by calling her clumsy and forgetful, hoping to throw her off or at least make her feel bad. But Takagi, unfazed as always, smiles and tells him there's a name written on his eraser. According to her, the name on someone's eraser is said to predict the person they'll end up with. Nishikata panics. He's sure he never wrote anything on it, but Takagi's confident tone and the way she admires the eraser make him second-guess himself. Maybe he wrote something without realizing it. Anxious, Nishikata demands his eraser back. When he checks, he sees nothing. No name. Takagi had been messing with him again. Frustrated but determined, he decides it's finally time to get serious and prank her properly. Later, when he asks to go to the bathroom, Nishikata takes the eraser with him. He plans to write the name of a random classmate on it to trick Takagi and turn the tables. But before he can write anything, he notices something already written on the eraser. Look down the hallway. He looks, and sees Takagi waiting, smiling. Once again, she's a step ahead. But this time, it wasn't just a simple prank. Below the message, there's also a name written. Even to him, it's a surprise. He had no idea it was there.
On a new day, Nishikata heads to school as usual, but this time he wakes up early. It's his turn to clean the classroom. On his way, he spots Takagi from afar and hurries inside, thinking he might get a chance to play a prank on her. However, when he arrives, Takagi is nowhere to be found. He searches all over the school, but the only trace he finds is her pair of shoes. Feeling defeated, he decides to take a break. While he's resting, Takagi suddenly jumps out from behind the curtains to scare him. She had been hiding there all along. A few hours later, still recovering from the surprise, Nishikata comes up with a new plan to make Takagi laugh in class, hoping their teacher, Mr. Tanabe, will notice and scold her for once. One of his classmates suggests making funny faces. Nishikata gives it a try during class. Although he fails to make Takagi laugh, he still ends up getting scolded by Mr. Tanabe for his antics, and strangely, that makes him happy. After the reprimand, Nishikata avoids looking at Takagi, worried that if he does, she'll prank him again. As always, his schemes backfire, and he's left as the only one who ends up embarrassed. But this time, something different happens. They lock eyes, and just by looking at each other, Nishikata bursts into uncontrollable laughter. In that moment, he realizes something simple yet true: Takagi is the girl who always makes him smile. The next day, Mr. Tanabe announces that the class will be practicing calligraphy. He tells the students they can write anything they like, as long as they focus on practicing Japanese characters. Nishikata struggles to come up with something to write. Luckily, Takagi suggests he write about something he doesn't like about her. Mischievous and unsure, Nishikata writes something, lacking a bit of self-control, and shows it to her. But Takagi isn't fazed at all. Instead, she calmly explains that what he wrote wasn't really negative, it simply reflected the status quo. She tells him she knows he actually loves that she's not in some high status, because if she were, he'd never get the chance to tease her. This surprised Nishikata and hurt his ego a bit. So, he decided to write a new word to Takagi. This time, he chose kindness, thinking that was what Takagi lacked. Ironically, before he could show her what he had written, the girl suddenly started acting very kind toward him, asking if he was okay and even returning his brush after it had fallen. Because of this unexpected kindness, when it was time to show her the paper, Nishikata flipped it over and revealed the other side, where he had written something completely different: "Stop annoying me." Takagi was surprised. She had no intention of stopping, and to prove her point, she told him to check his cheek. When Nishikata did, he realized she had secretly marked him with a bit of ink earlier. Naturally, our hero was annoyed, while Takagi was clearly enjoying the situation. The next day, Mr. Tanabe gave the class an English test. While everyone focused on their books, Nishikata was preoccupied with how to distract Takagi. Before he could come up with a proper plan, Mr. Tanabe called on him to read an English phrase aloud. Still distracted, Nishikata mumbled something completely off, earning a scolding from the teacher. But that didn't stop him. He was still determined to find a way to annoy Takagi. Nishikata decided to try distracting her so thoroughly that she'd be caught off guard when the teacher called on her. He started by asking her questions about her daily life, drawing her into a conversation. When Mr. Tanabe finally called on Takagi, she seemed spaced out from chatting, but, ironically, she recited the English phrase perfectly. Once again, she proved to Nishikata that she was smart and not easily distracted. Frustrated but determined, Nishikata began thinking of a new plan, only to have the teacher call the class back to attention, cutting his scheme short. The next day, the students are enjoying themselves at the school pool. Unfortunately, Nishikata can't swim with them because he's injured his right hand. As a result, Takagi decides to stay with him. In her usual teasing fashion, Takagi asks how he injured his hand. Nishikata doesn't want to share the details, but Takagi, using her sharp logic, quickly deduces that he was bitten by a stray cat. After making the guess, Takagi smiles and, continuing to tease him, asks Nishikata to try and figure out why she isn't swimming with the others. Nishikata racks his brain for answers, and with some help from his friends, Takao and Kimura, he comes up with two possibilities. The first is that Takagi is experiencing severe stomach pains, typical for her teenage years. The second possibility is that she feels self-conscious about her body. These two thoughts linger in Nishikata's mind as he considers them. After a moment of hesitation, he finally guesses that the reason Takagi isn't swimming is because she's going through her teenage years and dealing with stomach pains. Takagi gives him a disapproving look, and Nishikata's face flushes with embarrassment. Laughing out loud, Takagi decides to leave, teasing him as she walks away. "If you look at me, you're always going to say something silly like that," she says, before heading toward the pool. As she changes into her swimsuit and enters the water, Nishikata suddenly realizes that Takagi wasn't avoiding the pool due to any personal issues, she was simply teasing him, just as always. A few days later, Nishikata is walking home from school, going through his usual routine. Suddenly, Takagi catches up to him and, with nothing better to do, decides to walk alongside him. Noticing a new lemon-flavored drink in his hand, she asks what it tastes like. "It's delicious," Nishikata replies, then offers her the drink. "Want to try it?" As Takagi takes a sip, Nishikata jokingly adds, "That counts as an indirect kiss, you know." Takagi isn't surprised by the situation and decides to drink from Nishikata's bottle anyway. As expected, our hero is taken aback. When Takagi hands the bottle back, Nishikata is extremely nervous, knowing that if he drinks from it, it'll be another indirect kiss. In a moment of panic, Nishikata tosses the drink into the trash. To his surprise, he manages to land the shot perfectly. Motivated by this success, he picks up another can from the ground, eager to try again. This time, he misses the trash. But the failed attempt only boosts his confidence, and he starts to believe he might have enough talent to be a basketball player. After this small display of skill, Takagi decides to try her hand at the challenge, but as expected, she's not as good at throwing cans as Nishikata. She's a little off, and Nishikata, now feeling confident in his newfound abilities, challenges her to a competition. Sure he's going to win, he adds that if he loses, he'll do anything she asks. Takagi is even more motivated by this, and to everyone's surprise, she successfully lands a can in the trash. Nishikata feels the pressure and tries to calm himself down. He focuses on his next shot, determined not to lose the competition. Just as he's about to throw his can, Takagi interrupts him with a playful comment, causing him to miss the shot. As a result, Takagi wins the game, meaning Nishikata now has to do whatever she requests. Ironically, Takagi doesn't ask for anything. She figures it's more fun to tease him when he's not doing anything at all. Afterward, They part ways and head home. When Nishikata arrives at home, he reflects on how he'll deal with all the teasing Takagi has been dishing out. Inspired by a commercial, he decides to do one push-up for each prank she played on him that day. After counting 15 pranks, he completes 15 push-ups. The next day in class, Nishikata's muscles are sore. Takagi, noticing his discomfort, asks what's wrong. He sheepishly admits he started exercising at home. Without missing a beat, she teases him again, relishing the sight of him squirming in pain. At the end of the day, the protagonist does another push-up, this time 30, because Takagi had teased him 30 times that day. The following morning, after school, as Nishikata and Takagi were walking home, Nishikata commented that Takagi seemed more toned. This made the protagonist blush, which caused Takagi to laugh at him. Nishikata, embarrassed, asked why she teased him so much. Takagi simply replied that she enjoyed it because his reactions were so funny. Later, during the rainy season, Nishikata noticed that Takagi hadn't brought an umbrella. Seizing the opportunity, he teased her about it. However, his prank backfired when Takagi pointed out that although she hadn't brought her own umbrella, she had one that she could share with him. Now, the protagonist was left with no choice but to walk home with Takagi holding the umbrella. As they walked, Nishikata couldn't help but feel a little nervous from Takagi's closeness, so he decided to tease her again by calling her an airhead for forgetting her umbrella. To his surprise, Takagi admitted that she had been a bit grumpy, acknowledging that she sometimes forgot things. This confession made Nishikata happy, as it was the first time he had heard her admit to any weaknesses. But things weren't as simple as they seemed. Takagi revealed that she had only confessed to being forgetful to tease him further. To prove her point, she playfully asked Nishikata to say romantic things she supposedly forgot to mention, like, "I love you." However, to his dismay, the rain suddenly stopped before he could respond. If that wasn't enough, they soon had to part ways, and Nishikata was secretly relieved that Takagi didn't tease him for the rest of the day. Just before he could head home, Takagi teased him one last time, pretending that he had completely forgotten the way to his house and asking him to accompany her. The next day at school, Nishikata was punished by Tenab-sensei for causing disruptions in class over the past few days. His punishment: cleaning the science room. Though it seemed simple, it was a tedious task. But luck was on his side when Takagi appeared to help him. Although she was technically there to keep him company, she ended up teasing him as usual. While our protagonist, Nishikata, is cleaning the room, his classmate Nakai suddenly appears, accompanied by a girl named Mono. It quickly becomes apparent that Nakai and Mono are dating, with Mono holding on tightly to Nakai and seeming eager to take him away alone. Later, Takagi confirms to Nishikata that Nakai and Mono are indeed a couple. Nishikata feels nervous, especially as Takagi starts teasing him about teenage romance. This conversation makes Nishikata blush deeply, and to clear his mind, he continues cleaning the room. Afterward, Nishikata and Takagi head home together. Nishikata asks her to buy him a drink, but she makes a deal. She'll only buy it if he performs a flip at the bar in the park. He accepts the challenge, but on the condition that he won't watch her do it. Nishikata agrees, turning his back as soon as Takagi begins her flip. Afterward, it's his turn. With great effort, he manages to pull off the flip, but still doubts Takagi's execution. He asks for a second round. Nishikata flips again, but this time, he sneaks a glance to check if Takagi is doing it right. To his surprise, she completes the flip perfectly. Reluctantly, Nishikata gives up and agrees to let her buy him a drink. That night, Nishikata stays up late watching a show about forbidden love. Meanwhile, the air conditioner turns on, and he catches a cold. The next day, he arrives late to class. However, his cold isn't real, he's only pretending to take advantage of Takagi's kindness. During class, Nishikata tries to exaggerate his symptoms, hoping Takagi will take care of him. But his plan backfires when Takagi doesn't tease him at all, instead believing he's genuinely sick. Frustrated by his unsuccessful act, Nishikata eventually confesses to Takagi that he's been faking the cold. He quickly regrets it, as Takagi wastes no time in letting him know that she'll now tease him in front of the whole class. After class, Takagi and Nishikata walk home together. As they walk, Their classmates Mina, Sane, and Yukari watch them from a distance, gossiping about the two. They can't help but follow Takagi and Nishikata home, curious about their relationship. Takagi starts to feel like they're being watched from a distance, so he pulls Nishikata aside, and the two of them hide in some bushes. As a result, Mina, Sane, and Yukari decide to leave them alone and head home. The only one at ease is our protagonist, who feels nervous being so close to Takagi. She can't resist teasing him about it. She loves seeing Nishikata blush. For one final joke, Takagi challenges her to a race home. The next day, we find our protagonist in the library, studying hard for an important exam. She has to pass it, or her parents will forbid her from playing video games. While she forces herself to focus, Takagi appears, seemingly to accompany her. Nishikata assumes Takagi is planning to tease him as usual, but to his surprise, he actually helps him study. Takagi explains that he feels guilty for teasing him so much in class, which is why he's offering help this time. Despite this, Nishikata remains skeptical of Takagi's intentions. But since Takagi doesn't act out of the ordinary, he decides to trust him. A few hours later, as they walk home, Nishikata thanks Takagi for helping him study, admitting that he never thought Takagi would actually help him. Takagi quickly admits, however, that he only helped him to tease him again. It turns out that the topics he helped with weren't even on the exam, so Nishikata had just wasted his precious time. After the big test, our hero receives his score, a 59. Naturally, he's a bit disappointed with the low score and decides to hide it from Takagi. He tries to guess Takagi's score instead. When he gets it wrong, he ends up bragging that his actual score is a 59. This causes the math teacher to come in and scold him for disrupting the class. Then, Takagi asks him to guess her score on the math test. Nishikata, confident that she scored between 92 and 99, guesses 92 first, based on her reaction. But after considering her exaggerated response, he decides to revise his guess to 99. Takagi shows Nishikata her test score, it's actually a 92, and tells him he should trust her more, pointing out how his reaction didn't match her real result. The next day, Nishikata goes to the store and buys a volume from his favorite Forbidden Love manga series. As he's leaving the store, he runs into Takagi. She asks him what he bought, and he lies, saying it was just some soccer magazines. Trying to avoid more questions, he attempts to leave, but Takagi follows him. On the way, she reveals that she knows what he really bought, Forbidden Love. Embarrassed, Nishikata nervously asks her to keep it a secret. She agrees, but since she now knows one of his secrets and he knows none of hers, he decides to even the score. Takagi leans in and whispers, "I like you." Nishikata blushes furiously, prompting Takagi to burst into laughter. She quickly tells him she was lying, just returning the favor for his earlier lie. Later that day, after school, they're caught in a sudden downpour on their way home. With no umbrella, they take shelter at a nearby shrine. Takagi is completely soaked, so Nishikata lends her his PE shirt. As she puts it on, he can't help blushing at the sight of her in his clothes. A few minutes later, a soaked and shivering cat appears. Nishikata offers it shelter, and Takagi gives it her PE shirt, which the cat gladly accepts. When Nishikata puts his shirt back on, he's overwhelmed by the lingering scent of Takagi, making him blush again. Soon after, the rain stops, and they head home. With summer vacation approaching, Nishikata is thrilled. He hates school and is excited to spend the break with his friends Takao and Kimura. Takagi, on the other hand, enjoys school, because it means spending more time with Nishikata. As they walk home together, they see Nakai and Mono riding a bicycle together, which gives Takagi an idea. She suggests they go biking together sometime, but Nishikata shyly refuses. He told her that if she didn't agree, she'd have to buy him a drink, a challenge she had no choice but to accept. Before riding together, they practiced in a small space. Unfortunately, Nishikata lacked the strength or stamina to carry Takagi's weight, so he gave in and ended up buying her the drink instead. Later, Takagi wanted one too, but realizing she had no money left, she pretended not to be thirsty. Nishikata noticed how sweaty she looked and, knowing she wouldn't drink from his bottle because she saw it as an indirect kiss, bought her a separate one. Takagi then told him that their cycling training would continue the next day. When it came, Nishikata visited her house, all set for training. But heavy rain just minutes earlier forced them to postpone. That didn't mean they had to go home, though. Takagi suggested they go out somewhere else. She agreed, but only on the condition that they went somewhere private. She didn't want classmates seeing them together. Nishikata agreed and, without hesitation, took her to the darkest tunnel in town. He told her creepy stories about the tunnel, ghost sightings, mysterious disappearances. Naturally, Nishikata was terrified, but tried to act brave. As they ventured deeper, Takagi took every chance to scare him. Even when he tried to get back at her, she always stayed one step ahead. At the end of the tunnel, Takagi was ready to go home using a different route, but Nishikata insisted they go back through the tunnel again. Once home, she did her push-ups, over 15 this time, thanks to all the pushing he made her do in the tunnel. Days later, Nishikata had one of the worst days of his summer vacation. He overslept, and as punishment, his parents made him do the shopping. On his way to the store, he spotted Takagi in the distance. This was odd, since she had told him she'd be away on a family trip. Curious and suspicious, he decided to follow her in secret to try and scare her.